I-41 married my wife, May 48, in March 2008. We met at a party through a mutual friend, and from that moment, it felt like fate. May had just graduated from community college and worked as a legal assistant while I was finishing my graduate program in biomedical engineering. We hit it off immediately, and after a few months of friendship, we started dating. May is truly a remarkable woman. She's beautiful, intelligent, kind, and always willing to go above and beyond for others, even at her own expense. That generosity has always been something I admire about her. She also has a sister, Jane 43, who has played a significant role in our lives. Jane is not just a supporting character in my story with May. Although the two sisters weren't close when they were younger, their bond grew stronger over time. About a year into our relationship, May had a serious issue with her landlord and was forced to move out of her apartment within 30 days. I couldn't let May become homeless, so we decided to move in together. At that point, everything was fantastic. I loved how May wanted to keep things simple and genuine in our lives. Despite things happening rather quickly, we were serious about our relationship. We discussed having children, moving to a different part of the country, and our long-term goals. It seemed like we were perfectly in sync. After I completed my graduate program, I proposed to May. She said yes without hesitation. At that point, we had been together for almost 4 years. Both our families were ecstatic, and we had a small, intimate wedding, saving most of our money for the future. My parents were incredibly supportive, covering half of the wedding expenses. My family was also thrilled because I only have one brother, and he wasn't married yet, so they truly wanted us to have a wonderful day. The wedding was beautiful, and it remains one of the happiest days of my life. Following our wedding, May and I decided we were ready to start a family. Our life together was stable, and we felt ready to embark on this new chapter. Coincidentally, I received a promising job opportunity at a major company, but it required us to move far away, about a 14-hour drive from where we met. This was a big step, and it wasn't easy, particularly for May. She was incredibly close to her family and used to having them around whenever she needed them. Moving meant saying goodbye to that familiar comfort. However, before we got married, we discussed that if a suitable job opportunity arose, we would seize it together, and this was exactly the opportunity we had envisioned. Despite the challenges, May decided to support me, and we moved to a city in the south, which offered a fantastic school district and relatively affordable housing. This was crucial for us, as we were both planning to build a family. The move happened quickly, and the main reason we didn't have a grand wedding like most people expect was because we used the money for a down payment on a house. It might seem practical, but we both thought about the long term. Owning our home, in a new place, provided a sense of stability but also an element of the unknown. We began our new life with a big job and a spacious house, but as they say, it was just the beginning. A significant aspect of my job was that it involved frequent travel. Initially, it was just 1 or 2 days a week. This wasn't terrible, and I knew May could manage while I was gone for short periods. However, as my career progressed, so did my responsibilities, and business trips quickly transitioned into longer trips. Before I knew it, I was spending 5 days a week away from home, from Monday morning to Friday evening. I only had 2 days a week with May. I felt terrible knowing this was difficult for her. Honestly, being away from home, away from my wife for days on end, worried me. May always needed a sense of connection with her family, and now she was in an unfamiliar place without anyone close to her except me. But I tried to ensure we stayed connected. I called, texted constantly, and when I returned home on weekends, I made a conscious effort to make up for the time apart. I always wanted to make sure I gave her all the love and devotion she deserved. On top of that, the salary for this job was exceptionally good. With what I earned, we could live comfortably and start saving for the future. I knew that if we persevered for a few years, we would have enough to genuinely consider starting a family. All those plans we dreamt about, from building a family to achieving financial stability, would become a reality. Everything changed on that day. I remember it clearly. I had just gotten off a flight after a long week of work and was about to get into my car to drive home. May usually called me once or twice during my trips, just to say she was fine and everything was going well. But this day was different. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. First 1 call, then 2, then 3. I thought it was strange but assumed she just wanted to know when I was coming home. But then the texts came in like a storm. She was messaging me frantically, almost panicking. "You need to come home. Please come home as soon as you can." I tried to call back, my anxiety rising, but when she answered, all she said was, "Get here now. You need to come home." Her voice was trembling, urgent, and my heart started racing. "What's happening, May? Are you okay? Are you hurt? Is anyone else okay?" She just repeated, "Please, get here as soon as possible," and hung up. No explanation, no further clue. Anxiety started morphing into fear. My heart felt like it was going to burst out of my chest. I ran through every worst-case scenario in my head. An accident? Someone in the family ill? A robbery? Was she hurt? I couldn't think straight anymore. As soon as the call ended, I rushed out of the airport at breakneck speed. The drive from the airport to our house usually took close to an hour, But that day, it was less than 30 minutes. Every second felt like an eternity, and all I could think about was getting home immediately. Something terrible had happened. I was certain of it. As I burst into the house, my heart pounding, I saw May standing at the top of the stairs, holding a small cake. I stopped in my tracks, confusion washing over me. The cake looked simple, just a plus sign drawn on it with frosting. I stared at it, not understanding what was happening. "What is this?" I gasped, unable to hide the anxiety in my voice. May didn't answer immediately. Instead, she smiled, a smile filled with an excitement and a nervous tension I had never seen before. Then, in a flash, I understood. "Wait, you're pregnant?" I asked, my eyes widening, my voice trembling. My heart seemed to stop for a second. She nodded, tears of joy welling up in her eyes. "Yes," she whispered, "I'm pregnant." Unable to believe what I was hearing, I rushed towards her and embraced her. We held each other tightly, as if the entire world around us had ceased to exist. We both started crying, tears of happiness and relief. All the worry, all the tension I had bottled up for the whole week, suddenly dissipated like smoke. "I can't believe it," I exclaimed, burying my head in her shoulder. "We're going to be parents." May laughed through tears. "Yes, my love, we're going to be parents." We stood there, holding each other in our home, without needing to say anything more. It was the moment I knew our lives would change forever. Strangely, we hadn't actively tried to have children, but we hadn't shied away from the idea either. And now, it had come as a blessing, a monumental change we both welcomed with all our love and joy. "We're going to be amazing," I said, feeling her heartbeat against mine, and we both bathed in the elation of the new journey unfolding before us. From the moment we learned of May's pregnancy, life became an uncontrollable whirlwind, but a whirlwind overflowing with joy and challenges. Over the next 4 years, we welcomed 3 beautiful daughters, each about 18 months apart. Our home quickly became vibrant with the laughter, cries, and adorable chaos of young children. Life started to become literally crazy, with the demands of caring for 3 little girls coupled with the increasing pressure from my job. The company I worked for continued to give me bigger responsibilities, which meant more travel. Despite my best efforts, I knew I couldn't leave May to shoulder everything. So, I tried to adjust my work-life balance. I scheduled my trips to be within the city or nearby, so I wouldn't have to be away from home overnight. I started my workdays early, but before leaving, I always helped May wake up the girls, get them ready, feed them breakfast, and ensure they were ready for preschool. Even with a demanding workday, I tried to come home in the evening, usually around 6 p.m. I always tried to be there for dinner with the family, a simple but warm meal, often prepared by May. Then, I spent time playing with the girls before putting them to bed. Those moments, even though sometimes exhausting, were the ones I cherished the most. I always found joy in seeing my girls giggle, holding them tight, and feeling the love of the family we had built together. But time waits for no one. As my daughters grew older, my job became even more demanding. I couldn't maintain the daily commute back home, and the long trips started to increase. Gradually, every week, I was away from home from Monday morning to Friday evening. I tried to stay connected with May and the girls, doing video calls daily, asking them about school, about their shenanigans, but I knew nothing could replace being there every day. Every weekend when I returned, I made sure we had family activities. Often I would just spend time with the 3 girls, taking them to the park, the zoo, or simply baking at home. This not only helped me bond with the girls but also gave May some time to rest and relax after a busy week as a full-time mother. Other times, the whole family would go on picnics or cook together. I wanted to make sure my daughters felt my presence in their lives, even though I was away for the week. Over the years, the girls became more independent, and May started thinking about going back to school. She wanted to get her real estate license, a dream she had always had but never pursued. We had discussed this multiple times, and I always encouraged her to follow her aspirations. But every time, May would say that with 3 young daughters, being a mom was demanding enough. Caring for them took up all her time, and the idea of going back to school at this moment felt like a burden too big to bear. I didn't argue with her about this, because I understood that being a full-time mom was a demanding job, and no one understood that burden more than she did. May had dedicated everything to our children, and I knew that when they were older, teenagers, May would have the opportunity to pursue her dreams. But with each passing year, we kept putting this plan on hold. Family life, work, and other responsibilities always seemed to get in the way. Despite the busyness and the stress, I always told myself that we were building a better future, and that everything would be all right. But slowly, I started to feel a subtle distance growing between May and me. It wasn't apparent, but it felt like something had shifted, and I couldn't see all the nuances of it. One evening, after the girls were asleep, May and I sat together in the living room. Nothing special, just a regular night like any other, until she suddenly told me that she wanted to move. I was taken aback, completely caught off guard. I always assumed we both loved where we were. This is where the girls grew up, the place they called home. They had all their friends here. They were involved in extracurricular activities, and everything in our lives seemed to be firmly established in this city. Move, I asked, my voice slightly surprised. But we're settled here. Why would you want to move now? May sat down, her expression pensive and serious. She said she was starting to feel stifled. It felt like life here was becoming monotonous, and she needed a change. She said moving would be a chance for her to pursue her dream of getting her real estate license. A dream we had put on hold multiple times. She spoke about wanting a fresh start, and that a new place would bring her a sense of freedom, like a reboot in our lives. I looked at her, trying to understand, but at the same time I felt anxious about this. Are you sure? I mean, it will make my work so much more complicated. We're right near a major airport. Getting around is easy for me. If we move, it will mean more time, more difficult commutes. But when I pressed for more details about where she was thinking about moving, May replied with surprising confidence. She knew exactly where she wanted to go. A house on the East Coast, she said, her eyes sparkling. I found a house I like. We can check it out during our next vacation. It's only about 2 weeks away, and we'll have time to consider things. I sat there stunned, not only surprised by the idea of moving but also by how detailed her plans were. It was clear that May had been thinking about this for a long time, deeply, while I knew nothing. It felt like I had stepped into a story she had already written. Seems like you've been planning this out pretty thoroughly, I said, trying to mask my astonishment. But in my head, thoughts were swirling. It wasn't that I didn't want to support May in pursuing her dreams, but I couldn't help thinking about our daughters. Would it be fair to them if we suddenly uprooted them, moved to a strange place where they had no friends or connections? Would they feel like they were losing the stable life they had built? Of course I want you to be happy, I said, my voice calm. But my heart was conflicted. But I'm worried about the girls. They've grown up here. Everything they know is here. They have their friends, their school, and a life they love. I don't know if moving is the best thing for them. May listened quietly, and I could see in her eyes that she had thought about this. But the desire for change seemed stronger than ever in her. She had lived a life of being a full-time mom, dedicating everything to the family. And now she needed something for herself. But would the price be too high? 2 weeks later, we went on our vacation as planned. Our girls were enrolled in a full-time tennis academy, as all three were very passionate and dedicated to the sport. This gave us some free time, and May decided this was the perfect opportunity for us to check out the house she mentioned. To be honest, I was still hesitant. The idea of moving still made me anxious, but I knew going to see it didn't mean deciding anything immediately. As we arrived in the area May had mentioned, a feeling of familiarity washed over me. This wasn't completely unfamiliar, as we had been vacationing here twice a year for the past 8 years. It was on the East Coast, with stunning homes interspersed along the beach, charming New England architecture, large porches, and expansive windows overlooking the endless blue ocean. The fresh sea breeze blew through the white painted houses, and the sound of waves crashing on the shore brought a sense of serenity. As our car pulled up to the house May had chosen, I could see her eyes light up. It had a classic charm with white painted brick walls and a navy blue roof. The front had a small gate leading to a meticulously cared for garden, with vibrant climbing roses along the front porch. The large front door and spacious windows exuded a welcoming and comfortable feel. Seeing the joy evident on May's face as we stood in front of the house left me conflicted. I wondered if moving was the right decision. She took my hand, turned to me, her eyes filled with hope. "This is where I want to live," she said, her voice soft but firm. I took a deep breath, knowing this conversation wouldn't be easy. "But May, the houses in this area are out of our price range. We have 3 daughters who are about to be teenagers and college tuition to think about. I don't know if this is even feasible." She smiled, as if she had anticipated my response. "I know that, but there's a house that fits our budget. It's been on the market for 8 months and has dropped significantly in price." I was slightly taken aback. It seemed May had done a lot of research, and I couldn't deny she had put more time and effort into this than I thought. "There's an open house tomorrow," she continued, "and I think we should go see it, just to look around. No pressure." The next day, we went to the open house, and as soon as we stepped through the front door, I saw May's reaction. She was almost ecstatic about this house. It had a warm and inviting feel. The spacious living room had exposed wooden beams on the ceiling, cream-painted walls, and large windows that brought in abundant natural light. The modern kitchen had stainless steel appliances, a large island in the middle, and sliding doors leading to the backyard, which had a small patio overlooking the ocean. The bedrooms were all comfortable and cozy, especially the master bedroom, which had a balcony with a direct view of the beach, where I could envision May standing every morning, soaking in the scenery she adored. The house had an undeniable charm, and I could see why May was so drawn to it. I stood there, looking around the house, a part of me still unable to fully agree with moving, but as I saw the happiness in May's eyes, and the way she walked through each room with such joy, I wondered if moving here might actually be an opportunity for us to refresh our lives, for her to rediscover herself. And within 2 months, we uprooted our entire lives and moved. Everything happened so quickly, It felt like we were caught in a whirlwind. I had thought we should wait until the end of the school year, so the girls could have a better chance to prepare for this major change. But May was adamant. She said she couldn't wait any longer, that moving sooner would be better for everyone. I understood her desire, but I still wasn't completely comfortable with the speed of it all. We talked to our girls, and although they all agreed, I felt hesitation from my youngest, Lily 14. While the other two seemed excited about the idea of moving to a new place and exploring new things, Lily was unusually quiet. When we first sat down to talk about moving, she said she was okay with it, but her eyes and her demeanor told a different story. Lily's silence worried me. She was always the more introverted and sensitive one out of her sisters, and I knew that going to a new school, just a few weeks before the end of the school year, would be a major challenge for her. One evening, after May had gone to sleep, I decided to sit down and talk to Lily alone. I needed to understand her feelings better, and her quietness wouldn't let me stop thinking about it. "Are you really okay with moving, Lily?" I asked, trying to keep my voice as gentle as possible. Lily was silent for a while, her eyes fixed on the floor. Then, finally she sighed and said softly, "Not really, Dad?" I felt a sharp pang in my heart. I had been right. "You're saying that to us because you don't want to make things difficult, right?" I asked. Lily nodded, her eyes downcast. "Yeah, I feel like Mom is forcing me to agree. She says everyone wants to move, and that I'll love it here. I don't want to upset her, but it's hard for me." I leaned down closer to her, put my hand on her shoulder. "It's completely normal to feel this way. Lily, I understand that leaving behind your friends and everything familiar can be really difficult. I wish we could wait a little longer. I'll talk to Mom about this, so she understands how you feel." But Lily quickly shook her head, her eyes wide with worry. Dad, don't tell Mom. I don't want to upset her. She's been so excited about moving." I looked at her, feeling heavy in my heart. As a father, I wanted to protect the feelings of both my daughter and my wife. I wanted Lily to feel heard and not forced, but I didn't want to hurt May's joy either. "I'll respect your wishes. I won't say anything to Mom," I reassured Lily. "But if you feel like something isn't right, you have to tell me immediately." "Okay." Lily nodded, but I still felt uneasy. Something felt off. There was a little voice in my head that kept saying we were missing something crucial. I loved May, but it was clear her desire was pushing the family in a direction not everyone was ready for. Lily wasn't the only child affected by this decision, and I wondered if my other daughters were holding back feelings they didn't dare express. As the school year ended, our girls enrolled in a full-time tennis program right in our neighborhood. It was an ideal area. Everything was easily accessible. We lived in a gated community with incredible amenities, a large tennis center, multiple pools, and right outside our door was a well-known grocery store. The girls could bike around the property without any obstacles, and everything seemed to be running smoothly. However, I gradually started noticing a shift. Lily and our middle daughter, Abby 12, began to withdraw from both May and me. At first we thought it was just adolescence. They were becoming more independent, craving freedom, and no longer wanting to share everything with their parents like they used to. It's understandable. The girls were entering a period of self-discovery. But deep down, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something wasn't right. I'd occasionally catch Lily and Abby whispering to each other, and when I'd get closer, they'd immediately go silent. Those actions, although not blatant, still left me wondering. But May and I weren't overly concerned. The girls were fully engaged in sports, studying hard, and seemingly happy with their new lives. Then one day, May told me she had decided to pursue her real estate license. I wasn't surprised, as we had discussed it multiple times, and finally she felt ready. "Go for it," I said. "I'll support you completely." The girls were older, independent enough, and with their tennis schedule and evening classes. May would still be there with them when she left around 7 p.m. for school at the library and returned when they were asleep, around 11 p.m. Although I didn't like the idea of having 3 daughters home alone for a good chunk of every evening, I also realized we lived in a safe, 24/7 guarded area. Plus, our next-door neighbor was always willing to help if something happened, and the girls all knew how to take care of themselves. Everything seemed to be going well until one weekend afternoon. I came home early to make lunch, planning to spend some time with the girls. As Lily walked into the house, I immediately realized something was wrong. She didn't greet me like she usually did. Instead, Lily rushed towards her room, her face flushed, and before I could ask what was going on, she slammed her door shut and locked it. I felt a wave of concern immediately. Lily had never reacted this way, and her attitude made my heart sink. I went to her door, knocked lightly, trying to maintain a calm voice. "Lily, what's wrong? Do you want to talk to your dad?" From inside, her muffled voice came through, choked with emotion. "Dad, just leave me alone." It broke my heart, but I knew I couldn't force her. "I understand, honey. I'll be in my room. If you need anything, anytime, come find me," I said, hoping that after some time to calm down, Lily would open up. After a few minutes of silence, I heard the door creak open. Lily came out, her eyes still red and puffy, and it was clear she had been crying a lot. She looked around, as if searching for someone, and then asked in a soft voice, "Is Mom home?" I shook my head, trying to sound as reassuring as possible. "No, honey, she's at the library studying for her exam. She'll be back late." Immediately, Lily came over and hugged me tightly. I felt her trembling in my arms, her tears streaming down my shoulder. My heart ached, unsure what to do except hold my daughter. "I'm here, my love," I whispered. "I'm always here." It was only then that I truly realized how much Lily had changed. She had always been mature beyond her age, but this time she seemed smaller and more fragile. Throughout the summer, I had noticed Lily getting thinner, but only now did I truly see how drastically she had lost weight. It made me worry tremendously, but I didn't know what to say to avoid putting more pressure on her. "Lily, is something wrong? You can tell me anything," I asked gently, trying to understand her emotions. But Lily just shook her head, and after standing there for a moment in my embrace, she walked away. "Thanks, Dad," she whispered, then closed her door again, leaving me standing there, utterly confused. I wasn't sure if this was just teenage angst or if there was something serious that she didn't want to share. My first instinct was to call May immediately, tell her what had just happened. But then I stopped. Lily had come to me, clearly feeling comfortable enough to talk to me, and I didn't want to betray that trust. Respecting her wishes, I decided not to call May. However, deep down, a feeling of unease kept growing. Should I do more? Was I ignoring something crucial by staying silent? I couldn't shake off the worry, and what had happened with Lily that day kept nagging at me. A few days later, my suspicions became too great to ignore. I decided to look at Lily's medical records, the files we kept safely stored in the garage. It was a habit May and I had maintained to track the girls' health annually, but I never thought I'd have to scrutinize them as carefully as I did now. I rummaged through the stacks of paperwork and found Lily's annual checkup records. When I opened them, the truth hit me like a blow to the gut. When Lily was 12, she was 5'3" and 130 pounds, a perfectly normal number for her age. But when I compared it to the most recent record, when Lily was 14, she had grown another inch but weighed only 110 pounds. 20 pounds had disappeared in just 2 years. I tried to make sense of this in my head. She was still eating normally, she was still engaged in physical activities, but it was clear something wasn't right. That sudden weight loss couldn't be simply attributed to adolescence. The worry inside me intensified, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. After putting the medical records back, my mind raced. I tried to find any way to understand Lily's eating habits, thinking maybe she had changed her diet without me noticing. I walked towards the refrigerator, opened it, and looked inside. Initially, I saw nothing out of the ordinary. The fridge was stocked with food, as always, with veggies, meat, fruits, milk. But then I noticed something strange. Everything was brand new. All the groceries seemed to have been bought the day before. All the food packages were still sealed, unopened. With a family of 5, groceries were constantly replenished, and it was rare to have a full fridge with no signs of anyone using it. I brushed it off at that moment, trying to convince myself that maybe May had just gone to the store, or that the girls were busy with their tennis schedules and hadn't eaten properly. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. Lily's weight loss, her behavioral changes, and the full fridge with no signs of use. All those pieces seemed to connect in a way I couldn't articulate clearly, but I knew something was off. Over the next few weeks, things in the house became worse. I noticed Lily withdrawing even further, becoming more introverted, silent, and distant. She no longer wanted to share anything with me or May, but what bothered me most was the change in my other daughter's behavior. Abby and June, who were always active but gentle, started having outbursts of anger. Arguments between them happened almost daily, yelling, slamming doors, and even once, I heard the sound of things being thrown coming from their bedroom. This wasn't normal. We had never seen them react so strongly, so tensely. The interesting thing was that Lily was usually the one who de-escalated these arguments. She, despite going through so much herself, was better at calming her sisters than anyone else. May and I tried to resolve these conflicts, but Lily seemed to have a way of calming Abby and June down faster. And then, suddenly it all exploded one morning a few months later. Our youngest daughter, June, woke up in excruciating pain in her stomach. I remember her face contorted in pain, and immediately we thought about taking her to the hospital. I was ready to take June, but May insisted she would go with June, and I should stay home with Lily and Abby so that when they woke up, I could explain and they wouldn't panic. "I'll get her there quickly. Stay home and take care of the little ones." "Okay," May said, almost rushing as she helped June into the car. I was a little surprised by her urgency, but I didn't think too much about it at that moment. I put June in the car, and May sped off as if she didn't want to lose a single second. I went back inside, planning to make breakfast for Lily and Abby when I suddenly realized May had left her phone on the kitchen counter. A feeling of uneasiness washed over me at that moment. I'm not a nosy person, and we always had an open phone policy in the family, no secrets from each other, but I was about to turn away, thinking that May would come back for her phone or would call me from the hospital. Just as I was about to walk away, a notification popped up on the screen, a text from May's sister. I couldn't stop myself from looking at the message that appeared on the lock screen. It was just a short message, but enough to make my heart sink. "Have you told him yet?" I stood there frozen, the text message like a dagger through my mind. Him, was I him? And told him what? My heart pounded, questions without answers circling me. I didn't know what to do. Should I unlock the phone and read the message, or ignore it and continue waiting for May to come home? We always trusted each other, but at that moment, suspicion flooded in. It was clear something was going on that I didn't know. And the biggest question now was, what was being hidden? Initially, I was going to ignore it, leave May's phone where it was, and not intrude on her privacy. But that unsettling feeling wouldn't go away. Out of curiosity and worry, I decided to check the messages, and in that instant, my entire world shifted. The text I read from May's sister felt like a punch to the gut. She was warning May, "You need to stop this. If he finds out, it will all crumble. You're playing with fire, and he won't forgive you." I was stunned. It would all crumble. I felt confused and disoriented. It all happened so fast and I couldn't understand. What had just happened? I scrolled the screen, my hands shaking as I continued to read the messages. With horror, I saw May's admissions to her sister, "I miss Derek. With him, I feel like a real woman. When we met, everything changed. I know it's wrong, but I can't stop. I think I'm starting to love him." Those words felt like they were piercing my heart. Derek? That unfamiliar name suddenly became the center of the life I thought I understood. May was having an affair? And worse, she was in love with someone else. Shocked and heartbroken, I scrolled quickly through the messages. In a panic, I searched for any trace of Derek, but there were no contacts with that name. However, when I used the search bar on the phone and typed in Derek, a different name appeared as an alias. A sense of disgust washed over me as I opened that conversation and saw a slew of sexually explicit messages, nude pictures, and plans to meet up almost every night of the week, all while I was away on business trips. I felt nauseous as I saw those texts. Jenny was just a cover for Derek, and all this time I had been oblivious to the fact that my life was being played with in this way. May's study sessions at the library were actually a cover for her meetings with Derek. I felt sick, not just at what I was reading, but also at myself. I didn't know what to do. Emotions surged, anger, pain, humiliation, but I knew I needed to stay calm. Logically, I needed proof. I needed to be sure I wasn't missing anything. I quickly jotted down Derek's phone number and information from the texts, saving everything I could before turning off the phone screen. Then I put the message thread back where it belonged, leaving the conversation between May and her sister intact. But inside me, everything was falling apart. I couldn't believe that the wife I trusted, the one who had stood by me through thick and thin, could betray me in this way. How long had this been going on? Was it just Derek? Or was there someone else? Was this just a physical affair, or was it also emotional? And the worst part, had my girls met him? Did they know anything? A million questions swirled in my head. I felt myself drowning in pain and anger, and on top of everything, there was another uncomfortable feeling creeping in, guilt. I blamed myself. Had I been too focused on my job? If I had spent more time with May, would she have felt the need to turn to another man? I stood frozen in the kitchen, still holding May's phone, my mind filled with conflicting thoughts. I didn't know what to do next, but I knew for sure the life I thought I was living had changed forever. After about 20 minutes, I decided to wake the girls up. The three of us piled into the car and drove straight to the emergency room. On the way, I got a call from the hospital, asking if I was June's father. I answered yes and felt a spike of anxiety as they told me June had acute appendicitis and needed surgery immediately. I tried to stay calm. My daughters sat silently, their eyes still sleepy, not fully understanding what was happening. I didn't want to tell them about the severity of the situation at that moment, not when they were already confused and worried. The car ride was silent, and throughout the journey, I was caught in heavy thoughts about everything I had just discovered, about May, about Derek, and about our family. But I knew, right now, I had to focus on June. When we arrived at the hospital, I was told that June's surgery was underway, and we had to wait. Anger was the easiest emotion to experience at this moment, but I didn't have time for it. I had to be there for June and take care of my girls. Thankfully, June's surgery was successful. After 3 days in the hospital, she recovered and was allowed to go home. I took a week off from work to take care of her and try to spend as much time as I could with my girls. Despite my best efforts, I couldn't escape the storm of emotions brewing inside me. May was still prepping for her upcoming licensing exam, and every evening around 6:30 p.m., she would say goodbye to me before leaving for her study sessions at the library. This time, I paid closer attention to her goodbye routine. She always wanted to kiss me before leaving. But now, I no longer felt the genuineness. Every time she leaned in, I would subtly turn my head away, the sting of pain and betrayal piercing my heart. I couldn't bear the thought that the same lips were kissing Derek every night. I had to pretend to be normal in front of May, our daughters, and the world around us. But inside, I felt like I was drowning in a nightmare with no escape. My life, the family I loved, was now riddled with secrets and lies. And worse, I didn't know how to face it all when so much was still unclear.
On Thursday, as May left for her studies at the library, I sat in the living room, my mind wandering about everything that was happening. Suddenly, Lily appeared at the doorway. She looked exhausted, her eyes red-rimmed as if she had cried all night. I couldn't hide my worry as I saw her like this.
"Lily, are you okay? Is something going on?" I asked, trying to sound reassuring. Lily hesitated for a moment, then sighed and walked into the room. She sat down beside me and started talking, her voice shaky and hushed. "Dad, I've been thinking about telling you for a long time, but I was scared," Lily confessed, her eyes avoiding mine. "But I can't take it anymore. I'm sick of this." I held my breath. "What is it, my love? You can tell me anything." Lily swallowed hard, and as the first words escaped her lips, my entire world seemed to crumble. She said, "I've seen Derek at our house, many times." I felt my heart constrict. "Derek?" I asked, my voice catching, as if I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Lily nodded, looking pained and exhausted. "I've seen him here. Dad, he's been here when Mom said she was studying. I don't know how to say it. I'm scared, but I can't keep this in anymore," Lily said, tears streaming down her face. I was stunned, speechless. May had brought Derek to our house. That thought made me sick, but there was something even more horrible waiting ahead. Lily continued to reveal things I had never dared to imagine. Not only that, oh no, there was so much more I had missed. What Lily told me was heartbreaking. She admitted to me that since she turned 5, she had been playing the role of a mother. May seemed to lock herself in her room all day, just sleeping or eating. There were times when Lily wouldn't see May for 3 days straight. Food would run out to the point where Lily would have to go to the grocery store 3 or 4 times, biking back and forth, just to buy a decent amount of groceries. She had learned how to cook, but she wasn't very good at it. Lily continued to speak, her voice trembling, as if each word coming out caused her pain. "I feel like Mom never liked me. Dad, I've tried to talk to her about how I feel, about how I might be going through some mental stuff. But every time I did, she just said it was normal, that everyone goes through that phase."
My heart tightened as I heard those words. How could I have missed this? But then Lily continued, and things got worse.
"I told Mom that I was worried about my weight. I feel like I'm not okay. But she told me that I wasn't ideal yet. She told me that I needed to keep cutting back on my meals." I froze, unable to believe my ears. "Cut back on meals?" I asked, my voice catching. "Yeah," Lily said, tears pouring down her face. "She told me I could only have 1 meal a day, not lunch. I play tennis 6 hours a day, I bike almost 10 miles, I swim for 2 hours, and I still have to look after Abby in June." Hearing that, I almost went crazy. A surge of anger boiled up inside me. I wanted to throw things, scream at May, wanted to get a divorce immediately, and sue her for what she had done to my daughter. My mind was a frenzy of mixed emotions, from pain, anger, to feeling guilty for not recognizing what was happening. "Lily, you don't deserve to go through this," I said, trying to keep my voice calm even though my heart was heavy. "I'm not going to let Mom do this to you anymore. This is the last time." Lily looked at me, her eyes filled with fear. "Dad, please don't say anything to Mom. I don't want to break up the family. If you tell her, it will all fall apart. I don't want to be the one who destroys everything." I took her hand, held it tight in my palm. "Lily, you're not breaking up the family. I promise you, we'll figure this out. But this has gone too far. I love you, and I'm going to make sure Mom doesn't hurt you anymore. I can take you to see a therapist so you can talk about your feelings and process everything." She looked up at me, her eyes filled with apprehension. "You promise?" I leaned down, meeting Lily's eyes directly. "I promise, my love. I won't let anyone hurt you anymore." Lily nodded, and I held her tight, trying to hold on to some calmness amidst the storm of emotions consuming my mind. I had promised, and this time I was going to do everything I could to keep that promise. When May came home that night, I wanted to confront her immediately, wanted to throw all the evidence in her face and yell that I knew everything. But looking at the girls, I knew I had to hold back. They didn't deserve to witness this. I decided to wait until the next day, when the girls were at school and we were home alone. The next morning, as planned, I confronted May. My heart was pounding as I started the conversation, but I knew I had to stay calm. "May, we need to talk. About you and Derek," I said, trying to keep my voice steady but firm. Initially, May seemed completely shocked and immediately denied everything, her eyes filled with confusion. "What are you talking about? Derek? Who is that?" But I was prepared for this. Before we sat down, I had texted May's sister to confirm everything. She couldn't hide it anymore and admitted to knowing about the affair. I held the small piece of paper in my hand where I had scribbled boyfriend's number. I looked directly into May's eyes. "Why didn't you tell me about this number?" I asked, my voice hardening. May flinched, but she still tried to remain composed. "What are you talking about? Whose number is that?" She looked at me defiantly. I took a deep breath, keeping my voice steady. "If it's nothing, you wouldn't mind me entering this number into your phone, right?" May hesitated, and it only made me even more certain about my suspicions. I reached out to grab her phone, and after a moment of hesitation, she reluctantly handed it to me. I entered the number into the search bar. And as I had anticipated, the messages between May and Derek appeared instantly, undeniable. Suddenly, May collapsed. She started crying, her shoulders shaking, tears flowing relentlessly. She begged me, her voice choked with sobs. "Please, don't leave me. You're everything to me. I'll end it with him, I promise. I just felt so alone. You were gone so much. I was home alone with the kids. I felt like I had no one." I tried to stay calm, but the anger inside me surged like a storm. "You were gone so much," I yelled, the rage bubbling over, impossible to contain. "What about all those times you locked yourself in your room? What about those days you couldn't get out of bed? The kids had to take themselves to school because you couldn't get up. Lily had to get rides from her friends because you couldn't take care of them. You knew they didn't have the bus." May hung her head, sobbing, but it only made me angrier. "You think this affair is my fault because I travel for work? What about Lily? She's been playing the role of your mother. Did you think about how she had to comfort Abby and June, had to go grocery shopping, had to cook, while you were locked in your room?" I looked at May, not recognizing the woman I had married anymore. She shook her head, trying to find excuses, but all I heard were choked sobs. "Do you know what Lily told me?" I asked, my voice stern. "She's been going through so much, carrying the responsibility you couldn't handle. You told her to eat one meal a day, not lunch. She plays tennis 6 hours a day, bikes, swims, and still takes care of the 2 younger girls. Do you understand what she's been through? And you still think this is because I travel too much?" May looked at me, with nothing left to say but tears and feeble apologies. But for me, it was too late. I couldn't go back to what we had. All I could think about was how to protect my daughters from the woman I had once loved but now utterly lost trust in. The confrontation between May and me was tense, but I never expected things to take such a horrifying turn. When I confronted her with the truth about the affair, May went into a panic-stricken state. She cried, begged me not to leave her, repeatedly saying I was everything to her. But apologies meant nothing when I realized how much I and my children had been betrayed. Then suddenly things shifted. May looked at me with a desperate gaze, her voice trembling, dramatically. "If you leave me, I'll hurt myself. I can't live without you." I was speechless. To say I was surprised would be an understatement. Before I could even react, May spun around, ran to the kitchen, and grabbed a large kitchen knife. Before my eyes, she held the knife to her throat, her hand trembling, her eyes filled with tears. "I'll do it right here if you don't forgive me," she yelled, her voice filled with panic and desperation. "I can't live without you. I'll end things with Derek. I'll be a better mother, but you have to forgive me right now." My heart was pounding, my mind was spinning. I didn't know what to do except try to stay calm. "May, stop. Put the knife down," I shouted, fear overriding all my anger. I started to move towards her, but she stepped back, keeping the knife closer to her throat. Her eyes looked completely unhinged. "I'll do this right here if you don't forgive me," she yelled, her voice laced with panic and desperation. "I can't live without you. I'll end things with Derek. I'll be a better mother, but you have to forgive me right now." My heart was pounding, my mind was spinning. I didn't know what to do except try to stay calm. "May, please, you don't need to do this. I beg you, put the knife down. We can talk." "But not like this," I said, my voice pleading. "I forgive you, okay? I forgive you. Now, put the knife down." She paused, looked at me, as if trying to understand my words. Tears streamed down her face, and after a few moments of hesitation, she slowly lowered the knife, her hand trembling. I stepped towards her, unable to believe what I had just witnessed. May collapsed into my arms, sobbing. Thank you for forgiving me. I didn't want to lose you." "I'll fix everything," she said through her sobs, tears soaking my shirt. I stood there, unable to react. My arms were still around her, but inside I felt empty. What had just happened was so insane, so unexpected, and now I wasn't sure of anything anymore. The forgiveness I had spoken was not genuine forgiveness, but fear of what May might do. I wasn't angry anymore, but instead I felt horror and helplessness, realizing that everything in our marriage had crumbled beyond repair. Although I had told May that I forgave her that horrible night, deep down, I knew my forgiveness was just an empty promise. Every day that passed, as I watched her attempt to repair and make up for her mistakes with our children, I didn't feel peace. Instead, it made me feel heavier. What she was trying to do now was the responsibility May should have been fulfilling all along, and even though she was trying to do better, I couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt for letting things go this far. I knew I couldn't continue living like this, so when things settled down a bit, I started looking for a divorce lawyer. I also began making plans to leave the house, take my daughters to a safe place, away from the chaos that May had created. However, with my insanely busy work schedule, it became incredibly difficult to carry out these plans. Working remotely wasn't an easy option in this situation, but I emailed my boss, explaining the details of my family situation. I hoped he would understand and give me the time I needed to resolve everything. The biggest issue I was facing was the distance from my family. All my relatives were over 16 hours away by car. I hadn't been able to tell my parents what was going on. The truth was, I wanted a divorce from May. I wanted to end this marriage and take my daughters elsewhere, start a new life. During my search, I found a reasonably priced 2-bedroom apartment for sale. I emailed the landlord, inquiring about the price and moving in as soon as possible. It wasn't a large apartment, but it was enough for me and my girls to have a safe place to begin again. May repeatedly reminded me about my promise of forgiveness, that we should stay together for the sake of our daughters. She tried to portray that she had changed, that she had broken up with Derek, but I wasn't sure if it was true. Something about her demeanor made me doubt that she had completely ended things with him, or at least that their feelings weren't entirely over. I felt stuck between a rock and a hard place. I couldn't continue living in this deception, but I also didn't want to shatter the family abruptly, leaving my daughters to endure more trauma. Everything was so complicated, and I could only hope that my boss would understand the circumstances and give me some flexibility with work. I'll keep you updated when I get a response from my boss and hopefully find a way out of this awful situation, because I can't live in this deadlock any longer. Right now, I'm home, taking a few days off to take care of my girls and try to get my head straight. Although this work stoppage gives me time to consider things, I can't stop worrying about the future. If I decide to divorce, what will happen? I never thought I would have to become a single father, and the idea makes me apprehensive, even scared. How can I raise 3 daughters on my own? How many battles, both legal and emotional, will I have to face to gain custody of them? I know May could easily turn things against me. She could fabricate any story to make the court believe she is the better mother, that I abandoned the family by constantly traveling. She could spin a tale about me being neglectful or not caring enough for the children, and that she is the one deserving of custody. And honestly, this is what scares me. Even though the reality is that I've done everything I could to provide for my family, the fact that I've been away for weeks at a time could be used as evidence that I don't want to or can't parent my children properly. May could say that she's been there for the kids more than I have, even though I know that isn't entirely true. Lily has been playing the role of a mother for her for years, but how would that look in the eyes of the court? I know the legal system may not favor me, and I'm worried that I might lose custody of my daughters, which would make everything infinitely worse. It's been 3 months since I finally had the courage to tell my parents about everything. After years of living in chaos and pressure, for the first time I can say things have gotten better. My daughters are safe with me now, and we've moved in with my parents, at least temporarily, until I can get my work and life sorted out. Moving back in with my parents has actually been a perfect fit. My parents have rarely seen their granddaughters due to the distance. They always felt a pang of sadness for not being able to be close to them and witness them grow up. So when I suggested that we could all live together, they readily agreed without hesitation. For them, it's a chance to make up for lost time. Life now is relatively peaceful, although it's taking a bit of time for all of us to adjust. Lily, my eldest daughter, has told me that she really enjoys being here. Initially, I was worried she might feel out of place, but Lily has quickly adapted and feels more comfortable. She even said her sisters are enjoying the new life as well. My parents have created a warm environment where the girls can play freely and feel the love and care from their grandparents. Right now, I can report that Lily is doing much better, at least in my eyes. She's in therapy twice a week, and although I don't force her to go to both sessions, Lily voluntarily participates fully. I wanted her to feel empowered to decide what's right for her, as she's a teenager and aware enough to understand her emotions. Some might disagree with this approach, but keep in mind that Lily herself chose both sessions. She shared that therapy allows her to express all the bottled-up feelings with a safe person, and it gives me a sense of relief. Through therapy, we discovered that Lily has ADHD and is on the autism spectrum. To say I felt terrible hearing this is an understatement. My mind raced, trying to process why I had missed these signs. Looking back, there was no reason I couldn't have recognized those little things, the behaviors and indicators that Lily had shown throughout the years. But once again, I have to admit that I'm human, and sometimes humans can't see what's right in front of them. Lily had been hiding her struggles so well. I can't imagine how she had to live with this hardship for all those years without proper support. If I had known before, I could have reached out to the school and arranged the necessary support for her, making sure that Lily had the best conditions for learning and growth. I could have also changed my behavior, understanding better what made her uncomfortable and what made her feel at ease. Looking back, this was truly a failure on my part as a father. Even though I wasn't completely absent, I wasn't sensitive enough and didn't dedicate enough time to understanding my daughters. And because of that, they suffered more than they should have. But I won't repeat that mistake. While I can't avoid traveling forever due to the nature of my job, I'm ensuring I come home on Thursdays every week and dedicate as much time as possible to being with my girls. Thankfully, my parents have been incredibly supportive. They've helped with the care of the granddaughters and reconnected with them after years of separation. This has been a huge help, not just for me but for the girls as well, having their grandparents' love and care. Abby and June are thriving too. I'm incredibly proud of them as I see them become more open and start exploring new passions around them. They love their environment here, completely different from city life before, but still suburban, peaceful, and safe. Both Abby and June have quickly made friends and built new social connections. Just like Lily, they're both in therapy twice a week, and I've noticed a positive shift from this. I've started a routine of sitting down with my daughters once a week, checking in on their lives, listening to see if they're okay, and seeing if there's anything I can help them with. It seems to have helped a lot, as the girls are actually opening up to me. Especially Lily, she's cried a lot, but those were tears of release. I'm so happy that she seems to be opening up to me more, and it makes me feel like our family is beginning to heal. Academically, my daughters are officially transferring to a new school next Monday. Lily will be starting her freshman year of high school, while Abby and June will be in middle school 8th and 6th grade. Transferring schools is a huge change, but I believe it's going to be better for all of us. The girls have started to adjust to their new lives, and I can see glimmers of hope for a brighter future. To say things have changed is an understatement. Everything has completely transformed, but ultimately I think we're on the right path, and despite some tough times, I believe my daughters' lives and mine have started to become better. Now, for what you've probably been waiting for, what happened to May? Well, the divorce was truly a nightmare. It was truly awful. The sheer number of lies May fabricated, along with the complex web of deception she created, made things incredibly difficult. It took a lot of time and money to get through all of this, both of which were emotionally draining and painful. May didn't take it well, and she tried to fight me at every checkpoint, making threats and trying to make me regret asking for a divorce. She once said, "You're going to regret this. You'll never see the girls again." May threatened that she would take my daughters away, that she would fight for custody with everything she had. She even called me a liar and a manipulator, using everything she could to try to tear me down. May's vicious words were tiring, but eventually we got the divorce. But the real battle had only just begun. The custody battle was the toughest part. May was relentless and made things extremely difficult, but my lawyer and I were well prepared. We handled this the way I usually do with my work, as much evidence as possible. Every detail, every event was going to be gathered and presented in a detailed and coherent manner. I knew that to win custody, I had to play it smart, and that's exactly what we were doing. The important thing is that, no matter how tense things got, I wouldn't tell the girls about the details of the legal battle. They didn't need to carry that additional pressure from the grown-up legal war. Actually, I know my daughters are very intelligent, they understand that something was going on, but I wouldn't drag them into it. I didn't want to repeat the mistakes of the past. Everything I was doing at this point was to protect my 3 daughters from further emotional trauma. Right now, I'm fighting for full custody, and with careful preparation and gathering substantial evidence, I believe we can achieve that goal. But I also know this isn't going to be quick. May won't stop until she gets the girls back, and I understand she'll try everything in her power to do so. But I'm determined. And I know that will never happen. I'll do everything in my power to ensure my daughters never have to go through anything like that again. I made many mistakes in the past, was absent more than I should have been in my daughters' lives, but now I won't let that happen again. No matter what it takes, I will protect the 3 most important things in my life, my daughters. The ending of this story isn't perfect, but it's a new beginning for me and my daughters. As for my job, I'm fortunate that I was able to retain my position with my previous company. They understood my family situation and were incredibly supportive. That was a lifesaver when things got too much. Luckily, there's a branch office near my parents, about an hour drive, and I can work from there when needed. Although my profession still requires a lot of traveling, my boss and colleagues have been very understanding, and I've arranged her standing. I also work remotely or in the nearby office when I'm not traveling. This has not only helped me stabilize my life, but it's also made a positive difference for my daughters. Lily told me that she and her sisters really appreciate the extra time I dedicate to them. They enjoy my presence more, something I know I was lacking in the past. While things seem to be more stable, I understand that life won't be easy, and we'll still face many challenges ahead. Perfection isn't the goal. That's an unattainable concept, but I've learned the biggest lesson of my life, being the best father I can be for my 3 daughters. Looking back, I realize I messed up a lot more in my life than I ever thought possible. I wasn't always there when they needed me, missed crucial signs of their health and mental well-being. But I know that, no matter how difficult the past was, my daughters are safe now, and that brings me more peace than anything else. I'll always carry the weight of my mistakes, of letting my daughters down. But I promise myself and all of you that they'll be loved more than anyone else in this world. I'm ready to be the father they deserve. While this journey is long and challenging, I know we're on the right path and I'll never give up.